I was Margaret number 2. Little Margaret was number 3. But I say celebration because this is a celebration, because her life was so well lived. And a life well lived is a precious gift from someone who has made our world a brighter and a better place. We still thank the Lord for having truly blessed her with a long life. Sister Margaret grew up in a Christian home and was taught Christian values, which she never departed from. And I have to say that she grew up in a time, like some of us too, that you didn't have a choice as to whether you went to church. When Sunday came, you were in church. You weren't asked, will you feel like going to church today? Nah. No, you had to board up, get in, and the other thing, you had to wear your Sunday clothes. Had to wear your Sunday clothes. But nevertheless, she baptized, and I'm not sure if she had the creek baptism or not, because, before the church has got baptism pools, we had a creek nearby. And so that's where we had the ceremony. And so I'm not sure if she was one of those lucky ones. But she baptized and became a member of St. Mark Baptist Church. And there, her spiritual journey began. After getting married to Brother Arthur Goodwin, she became affiliated with the Brown Chapel AME Church. And she worked both places. She was responsible in getting Brown Chapel and St. Mark ushers to fellowship together at anniversary time each year. And we always look forward to the good food. Sister Margaret was equipped for ministry. At St. Mark, she joined and served very faithfully with the Pulpit Aid Ministry, which provides for the well-being of our pastor. Diligently served with the Missionary Society number 2, now Missionary Ministry, as they provided support services to those in our community. And she was dedicated to the Ushers Ministry, where she served as treasurer for more than 40 years. Knew how to take care of business. She also delighted in telling the bus drivers every Saturday which members from Columbia would be traveling for that Sunday. The bus would travel to Columbia to pick up those members who were unable to drive or didn't have transportation. And she coordinated that effort. And she took pride in it. As a matter of fact, whatever you needed her to do in support of the ministries, she would do, often going beyond the call of duty. Most recently, she was inducted into the St. Mark Baptist Church Hall of Fame. And that's because she turned 90 years old. And so we have a tradition of showering them with a little love and some gifts if you turn 90, because that is a milestone. If you can get to 90, isn't that right, Miss Ruth? Yeah. You can get to 90, that is a milestone. So I believe she embodied the scripture which tells us to let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Miss Margaret was our beloved, and she loved us. She loved the family, especially, now, I don't know if any of us rated as much as little Arthur and Kathy and the children, but she loved us all, but they were special to her. She was instrumental in us celebrating our heritage with the Sims family reunion. She was persistent. We need to have something. We eventually got started. She was always proud of her ancestry and wanted others to know about it. As a matter of fact, we considered her the historian of the family, because if anyone needed to know about our family lineage, it was she who we would call. As they say, she could run it back generations. Not only did she love her church, her family, but she was a good neighbor. The Bible tells us, love thy neighbor as thyself. Where everybody on Guernsey Drive knew Sister Margaret, and she knew everybody. If they needed to go to the grocery store, she would take them. If they needed to get to the doctor, she would take them. Had death in the family, she took food or money. So she was loved by her neighbors, and she always took care of them. Not only that, Margaret was a great cook, and when you ate, she wanted you to enjoy. Her delicious peach cobbler and macaroni were two of our favorites. She was also a businesswoman, but she had a sense of humor, and she could talk. And she was straight talk. You knew the truth. She talked the truth. Not what somebody say or what you heard or whatever. She would do straight talk. And she would often talk about old times. And she loved talking about old times with her cousin, Deacon Adams, and Deacon John Adams, Deacon Doc Adams, Deacon John Adams, Deacon Roosevelt Garrett. Those were three cousins. Oh, they were like three peas in a pod when they got together. Talked about all of the old times and the fun times. So family, the great pilot has spoken. Our dear Margaret has taken flight. She boarded the flight, and on this flight, there were no cancellations, no delays, no storms to wait on, but a peaceful transition she took to reach her destiny. And I feel she reached it because she took hold of the promises of God while here on earth. So yes, that's a legacy. It's a legacy of lasting memories. And so I say, farewell to you, Sugar Boo. You're forever with the angels and always in our grateful hearts. We love you, Margaret Betty Sims Goodwin. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. What can you say about a person so beloved like our Aunt Margaret? Well, I can tell you how much she loved her parents and her siblings, but you already know that. I can tell you how much she loved her husband of many years, my uncle, Arthur Goodwin Sr., but surely you already know that. I can tell you how much she loved her only child, Arthur Goodwin Jr., and how devoted she was to him and he to her. But you definitely know that. I can tell you how much she loved Kathy, Trey, Baba, Amir, and the great-grand. But you already know that also. I can tell you how much she loved her nieces, her nephews, her family, near and far. But you already know that too. I can tell you again how much she loved teaching her students over the years. And you already know that too. I can tell you that she loved St. Mark Baptist Church so much. And she loved going to church with her church family. And she did that until she couldn't go anymore. But you already know that. I can tell you how a good cook she was. We were all delighted when we would come to her house we came to a feast. But you already know that, too. I can tell you about the moist, delicious, sweet jelly cake. If you ever had a piece of it, definitely you know about that. Okay. I can leave you with 4 delightful words that will keep you remembering this awesome lady. And if you don't mind, I want you to repeat these words after me. Margaret, Betty, Sims, Goodwin. Thank you.
What more can I say? Margaret and Eve just said what I was going to say. Now, what am I up here for? Well, I'm up here to do my thing. But it's done kind of in a different way. First of all, on the program and in your hearts and minds, it says sister-in-law. But I am a sister in love, because that is exactly what Margaret was to me. She and I were among the oldest members of the families, and there are 4 or 5 of us here in this family. All these Goodwins and Garretts and Adams and Sims and all of that. We are family. And God has blessed us as family. This is a tribute to my dear sister-in-law, Margaret Betty Sims Goodwin. And as I said, my dear relatives here have taken everything I was going to say, but I am, and those who know me, I like poetry, and my presentation is poetically done. It may be a little redundant, but I hope you get the point. If it's said redundantly, that means that I really mean it and they mean what they said. Today is a special day for us. And if you recall, 1 week ago, Margaret left us. That was what? What was it, class? What date was last Saturday? Exactly the 28th, right? When did Margaret pass? What is it? On the 28th. Margaret came into this world on the 28th. Margaret left this world on the 28th. Okay? The 28th entrance into this world, the 28th departure from this world. It was on August 28th in 1928 when the Lord permitted little Margaret to have this very special date. God had this beautiful baby girl come forth and join the Sims family band, for there she was a beautiful addition to the Sims family clan. Named for her grandma Betty and her Aunt Margaret again, those were the people in her life that she never would forget. There were 4 children in the family. They were all good workers and full of fun. My husband, Henry, was the oldest. There was Doc and Sister Ollie and Margaret, the youngest one. Margaret went to elementary school in Lower Richland County, and from there to Booker T. So proud to be a tornado. Oh, yes, sirree. And then off to Benedict, a good school to select. Her studies led her to teaching, for her work and service were indeed far-reaching. Though raised in the Gadsden area, there was another place for her crown, for Margaret and her two authors like living in Arthurtown. Now, Margaret loved giving you nicknames, and if you were around her long enough, the names she would give to you would reflect good personal stuff. Her love, her giving and sharing were indicative of her attitude, for she loved herself with an abundance of wealth, which was good physical and spiritual food. Speaking of food, here we go again. Could she cook? Oh, those jelly cakes and coconut pies. Well, if you ate any of her food one time, the scales would certainly chime. Oh, she adored her family, her community, and her church. And if you wanted to know about something long ago, check with Margaret Goodwin, for she would know the flow. You heard that before too, haven't you? If you talk to Margaret with just a little bit, and oh, she was so sincere. And that's why she and her husband, dear Arthur, made such a compatible pair. Speaking of her family, there was no one closer to her heart than little Arthur, Kathy, grands, great-grands, and kinfolk, all of whom to her were so smart. Our Margaret was really appreciative for the love of her only child. My little Arthur, she would repeatedly say, oh, he's so kind and helpful and mild. And that Kathy, her sugar boo, was a loving daughter that she never had. She was there through thick and thin, and that made everybody glad. Sometimes before I could begin talking and have my little say, she'd say, but I want to tell you, Ruth, Arthur brought my food in, and he loved it, and he mowed the lawn today. I said, okay, Margaret, what else? She was so beautiful, and listen, and she always could take a joke. Margaret, your life was so beautiful, as everyone could see. The love you showed to everyone will remain with us eternally. For God's amazing grace, we have absolutely no doubt. For it was 28 in and 28 out. Lovingly penned by Esther Ruth Butler Sims, in honor of my sister in love.
I wish I would have got one of those coconut pies. One of my favorite. My mother used to make me coconut pies. And so I know it was good. Brother Goodwin, Sister Kathy, and the rest of the family, we definitely share your condolences if you have our condolences. I know it's tough to lose a loved one, especially a mother. And I was told that she used to love to listen to this song, and so I was asked to sing it. And if you know it, sing along with me. Two wings. Y'all know that? All right, let's sing Two Wings. Two wings to fill my faith. I want two wings, the wings to fill my faith. Two wings, the two wings. I gotta fly away because the world can't do me. Come on and give me will my faith. Two ways, two ways, two ways to fill. Two ways, the two ways. I gotta fly, 'cause I know the world can't do me no harm. Yeah, yeah. Wonder how these old morning light. I know that it won't be long. Well, you're gonna look well around for me, and I'll be gone on home. Well, I'm gonna get my way to it. Two ways to fill my faith. Two ways to win. Two ways to fill. I gotta fly. I know the world can't do me no harm. Yeah, now meet me, Jesus. Meet me somewhere, somewhere in the middle of the air. 'Cause if these he shall fail. Lord, I want you to meet me with another path, 'cause I got to have my ways to it, to aim to fail. Two ways to aim, two ways to fail. Two ways, two ways, I gotta fly, 'cause I know the world can't do me no harm. Yeah, yeah. Meet me, Jesus, meet me somewhere in the middle of the air. 'Cause if the wings shall fail, Lord, please meet me with another path, 'cause I got to have my wings to aim, to aim to fail. Two wings, wings, to aim to fail. Two wings, I gotta fly, 'cause I know the world can't do me no harm. Yeah, yeah. Up in glory, I got my long white robe. Oh, Lord, up in glory, I got my new pair of shoes. Yes, but most of all, I got my wings. I said I'm always spread anew. Lord, I finally got my wings to aim, to aim, to fail. Two wings, to aim, to aim, to fail. Two wings, Lord, I gotta fly, 'cause I know the world can't do me. Two wings, to aim, to aim, to fail. Two wings, to fail. Two ways, I gotta fly, 'cause I know the world can't do me no harm. Yeah.
Two wings. Thank you, Reverend. To God be the glory for the many marvelous things that he's already done. 93 years. We ought to give the Lord a hand blessing of praise. This past Saturday evening, it was dark. I was driving, and the phone rang, and it was Hattie. And I said, well, I'll call her when I get home, because I was close to home, and I don't know about you, but driving in the dark and reaching over in the seat to pick up the cell phone doesn't work too well for me anymore. So we thank God for the spirit of safety. And when I got home, Hattie had sent a text and shared with me that Mom had slipped away peacefully. And I thought to myself, and I shared with Hattie, that's a good thing, to be able to steal away. Mother Goodwin was what I refer to as a GPS of a lady. Not GPS in terms of the global positioning system that each of us has in our cars that tells us which way to go, the left or the right, but she was a GPS of a lady in that she was generous. She was generous, as I recall, with her praise and even with her support. She was prayerful. I remember several years ago, Arthur, going down to Veterans Hospital to see your father. And it must have taken me to find his room. And I know my way around all the hospitals in Columbia, but it took me a long time that day to find him, and I was determined that I was not going to leave there until I found him. And when I did find his room, I walked in and I heard prayer going on. There was Brother Goodwin resting in the bed, and there was Mother Goodwin at the very head of the bed, rubbing his head, and she was asking God to take care of him. You know, it's good to see a wife or a spouse praying for their spouse on their sick bed. You know, some of these new spouses won't pray for their spouse. Can I get a witness? GPS, S, she was spiritual, and she was always sweet. Always approached me with the biggest smile. Just had the brightest smile. And at one time years ago, and perhaps still today, as I remember, she had 3 grand boys. And she would always talk about those grand boys and wish Miss Howell and me well with our 3 boys. But what Mother Goodwin didn't share with me is that them 3 boys will eat you out of house and home. She sat on the back row of the St. Mark Church in her duty as an usher. She sat attentively, always, with her head up, looking forward, as she would have her students to do at Carver Elementary School. I appreciated that each and every Sunday. 93 years, ain't God good? May the work she's done speak for her. I heard Sister Margaret say something about the baptismal pool at St. Mark. I don't know whether Mother Margaret was in the baptismal pool of the creek, but I thank God for the baptismal pool, because I don't like the creek and the creek don't like me. May the work she's done speak for her. There is a word from the Lord. Our attention this morning is called and summoned by that gospel writer, St. Mark, chapter 4 and verse 35. And it reads like this: on the same day, when the even was come, he saith unto them, let us pass over unto the other side. As we get ready to go now into the word, I want to thank you, Arthur and Sister Goodwin, for the beautiful and organized manner in which you arranged for this celebration for Mom's Memorial today, befitting only for a queen. There are 2 sides to everything, and today we want to talk about this side and the other side. We need your prayers. There isn't anything, my brothers and sisters, that has only one side. If there is a left, there is a right. If there's a bottom, there is a top. If there's an east side, there is a west side. If there's a north, there is a south. Everything has two sides. As simple as that fact is, as elementary as it is, people often have difficulty processing the truth of the statement. They have difficulty applying it to live situations. Some people just forget that there's two sides to everything. They forget that even rumors have two sides. Everybody say two sides. They forget that every piece of gossip has two sides. There are people who will take one side and get on the telephone and spread it all across town, only having heard one side. The unfortunate thing about hearing an untruth is that we usually hear the false half, the wrong side, but before we render it official, we ought to wait until we have heard the other side. Before we reach or bring a guilty verdict, we ought to wait until we hear from the other side. We should not prejudge, neither shall we condemn until we have heard the other side. Why? Because everything, help me somebody, has two sides. Needless to say that many in this life have been marred and scarred and damaged by the carriers of just one side. Characters have been destroyed and reputations have been ruined because people told only what they wanted you to hear. But we ought to remember, my brothers and sisters, that there are two sides. Even the believer, a child of God, is composed of two sides. Brother preachers, you and I have two sides. We have a newness and we have an oldness. We have a spiritual side and we have a fleshly side. The new nature pulls us up to the God and the old nature pulls us down away from God. Paul describes this in Romans when he says, when I would do good, evil is always present. What I would do, I do not. What he's saying is that my intentions are right, but I have another side. I want to bring both sides to the table. I want to be strong in faith, but there is my other side. You've heard the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, you got some Dr. Jekylls and Mr. Hydes right in your own family. Some of you live with some Jekylls and Mr. Hydes. They're one way today and another way tomorrow. But even God, my brothers and sisters, even God has two sides. In the story of Job, Job confronts the theological of his day. Their position was that God was one-sided. That's why the friends of Job said that they understood what was happening to him. Their position was that God does not burn up a man's property, and God does not rob a man of his lifestyle, and God does not kill a man's family unless he's been doing something wrong. That was their position. But out of Job's experience, we can see and understand God's other side. Job responds by saying that the Lord gives. That's one side. And then the Lord taketh away. That's the other side. He can bless so no one can curse. That's one side. And he can curse so no one can bless. That's the other side. He can open doors that no man can shut, and he can shut doors that no man can open. He can lift you up, and no one can pull you down. That's one side. He can put you down, and no one can pick you up. That's the other side. God has two sides. He's the God of love. But don't you get it twisted. Don't you cross him now. He is a God of love, but don't you get it twisted, because if you cross him, he can be a God of wrath and a God of anger. That's the other side. When we give offerings in church, we sing a song that says, you can't beat God giving. And that's true. But it's also true that you can't beat God taken away. God gives because he's got so much from which to give. It's a fact. He's got 10,000 blessings in his hands. And you can't beat God giving. But guess what? God can also take it back. He's got so many ways to get it back. If we don't give God the praise, I wish I had a prayer in church. God can take it back from us. He says, you'll praise me now or you'll praise me later. And you ought to praise God, my brothers and sisters, every chance that you get. Look how far the Lord has brought all of us. Look how 2 years ago we didn't know what was happening in this world. But look at us this morning. We are still here, still sitting here breathing, praising God. Somebody ought to give God a hand blessing or praise in the house today. In the text, the Bible depicts the two sides of life as Jesus and his disciples cross over the Lake of Galilee. Jesus had had a very busy day in the ministry, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and holding small group sessions with his disciples in the classroom and in the college and university of the Lord. Dusk was headed for twilight as the sun sought for a spot behind